I was watching the president and the vice president and the task force the other day press conference. I was like, I'm so glad I'm not the president. I'm so glad I'm not God. I'm so glad that I don't have to figure it all out. I'm so glad I've got a God who has gone before me. I'm so glad I have a Father. If I did not have to run around like the pagans, what am I going to eat? What am I going to drink? What am I going to wear? Jesus says, stop worrying about what God is already working on. So he says, I'm going to lead you. I'm not going to take my presence from you. It's going to be different this time. It's not going to feel familiar. Your faith grows in unfamiliar places when you don't know where to go. That's when you get to know who God really is. I feel that for somebody right now. What about my business? What about my boat? How's my boat going to be in this storm? Let me tell you something. When God says stop, the storm has to listen. Yeah, one time Jesus was in a storm and the disciples felt like some of us feel right now. You don't care? This is weird. I thought you were like the Son of God and stuff. You know what Jesus was doing? I know you know, Anna. He was doing the most inappropriate thing you can do in a storm. He was sleeping. That's why I gave y'all these hard stools to sit on, because I didn't want you to fall asleep during my sermon. I was like, give him an uncomfortable stool. I don't want him to sleep through my sermon. But Jesus was sleeping through a storm. Here's what I want you to know. After the disciples had stressed out and scrambled, see, you got the disciples scrambling, and Jesus is sleeping because he knows something that they don't know. And I want you to do me a favor. Ask that storm what happened when Jesus told it to stop. When God says stop, the elements have no choice but to obey him. When God says stop, the Red Sea has no choice but to stop standing in my way. When God says stop, any weapon that is formed against me has to bow its name to the name of Jesus. So I want you to insert God's name over and against whatever need you have. His name is I am, not I was, and not I will be. God is with you in this moment, not just when I get to the other side, but when God says stop, every storm has to stop raging. I wish I had an organ. I wish I had a B3. We can still have church. When God says stop, ask Lazarus what happens when God says stop. The worms had already started eating his body. The process of decomposition was already in progress. But when God says stop, when God says stop, the consequences have to be reversed. When God says stop, when God says stop, God speaks peace to every anxious heart. When God says stop, I want you to tell the terror right now, God says stop. Put your hand out like this. Put your hands up like this on an emoji and fight the devil with an emoji. God says stop. Fear stops here. You can have my finances, but you can't have my faith. It stops here. Here's the lie. God said stop. Don't give him space. Don't give him your